Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. Today's the day that we do Mythbusters with Chris Rossini, who is the co-host today and is also the editor of the RonPaulLibertyReport.com. Chris, nice to have you with us today.
Good morning, Dr. Paul. Great to be with you.
Well, very good. I guess it hasn't been too difficult to find some of the fallacies that are floating around among the politicians and the economists. But right now we're in the midst of a political campaign, if you haven't noticed. So what will we be talking about today?
This week Hillary Clinton gave what was called an economic speech in Detroit, and there wasn't much economics involved. But a lot of promises were made. So we're going to go over some of those promises today. And we'll start with something that people love, especially on the left, and that's free stuff. And whenever they're promised free stuff, ultimately it morphs into an idea that they have a right to it. This year we heard about a right to health care and a right to free college education. So it just spirals in that direction. Now, Hillary didn't use the word right in this sense, but there's always time, so you never know. But this is what she says. She says, I happen to think that we should be ambitious. We should push every household in America to broadband by the year 2020, which is only 4 years from now. Now, Dr. Paul, does government have any business being in broadband and promising it to everybody in a mere 4 years?
Well, obviously not, but there must be an ulterior motive that maybe the government needs faster spying arrangements where they can spy on us in our houses and every place else. So they want a faster internet service. But, you know, this whole idea about rights, I think, are very important because people who demand something and want something and need something, it's been turned into a right. But, you know, they don't always say, I have a right to this, but they're entitled to it, which is equivalent to saying, I have a right to this. So all of a sudden now Hillary is saying that they need it and want it for the various reasons. We don't want anybody to be shortchanged. So they have a right to this and a need for it. So it's up to the government to provide for this. Obviously, it's wrong morally. It's wrong constitutionally, and it's wrong for practical reasons too, because when governments provide, whether it's health care, education, they always provide the worst kind of service. So she's demanding this, and it makes me think about a suggestion I once made that, what would happen if the government had been in charge of making sure that everybody in the country had a cell phone? That would have been a good goal. But what did the market do? We still had enough market left. There were a couple phone companies left. There was competition going on. And I can remember some of the first phones that I had when I had a car phone, and I thought it would be great for my medical practice. I spent a lot of money on them. They were big and bulky, and the service was lousy. And yet, what happened with competition? The phones got smarter and smaller and cheaper. And all of a sudden, the government thinks, at least Hillary does, thinks she can spread broadband, to every household and be efficient. Well, I think we can talk that it would be very, very expensive. It's going to be inefficient, and it's obviously not the way to go. But yet, people still fall into the trap of wanting this, and of course, she has to outdo Bernie Sanders because he has a lot of followers there. So it is something that they think is necessary. But I think some people are wrong in calling this socialism because I think it's the ill effects of democracy, pure democracy. If the majority wants it, and if I win the election, the majority says let's have free broadband and let's have free this and that and free education. So it's the dictatorship of the majority in a system that is not yet what you would classify as socialism, but every bit as dangerous.
Yes, next we'll talk about taxes. Hillary Clinton says that she wants to make it simpler for small companies to file taxes. I'm not sure how all the tax accountants out there would feel about this, but she said that it should be as easy as printing out a bank statement. Now, everyone knows that Hillary Clinton wants to drastically raise taxes. She's not very shy about telling us that. So does it really matter if it's simpler to file if we're all paying more to the government of our earnings?
It shouldn't be. It will be appealing because that is a complaint. We spend a lot of money, billions of dollars, because the tax forms are complicated, and we have to hire somebody to do it. And yet, just simplifying it, it could do exactly the opposite. We might make the case for a complicated form and a very difficult form and a cost to it. Maybe this will finally wake up the people for their tax revolt and say, we've had enough, we've had enough. But I think your point is well taken. She's not for lower taxes. She's not really for saving money. And she's for collecting more. It reminds me of what supply-siders argue. Supply-siders are good people. They think a lower tax rate is beneficial to the economy, and there's some evidence to this. But they're not interested in reducing revenues. The supply-side says one of the benefits of the efficiency of the system would be that there would be more revenues, and that, of course, is more harm that the government can cause. And maybe we could compare this a little bit to the withholding tax. The withholding tax was introduced during World War II, and they wanted to make it easier to pay the taxes. So you don't want to write a check to the government every month. Well, they made it easier. They withheld the tax, and people don't even know that they're stealing their money. And then if I get $10 back, they say, "Oh, the government sent me $10." But the withholding tax was horrible in being able for the government to hide the fact that they're taxing a lot of people, and the people are more complacent about it. So I think the taxes, when they're being paid, it should be made more difficult. At least not have the goal of making it easy and ignoring the problem that it causes. And that is, when the government takes this money, they penalize it. And the worst thing is when they start spending it, it causes a lot more trouble because it just enhances the size of the government. The bureaucracy undermines property rights and undermines our liberties, increases the chances of wars being fought. So it's the whole idea that it's a lot more complicated than simplifying the form. It would be difficult for me, to literally say that if we had a 20-page form to pay our taxes, that I would be put in the corner and say, well, I'm going to vote for the 20 pages rather than the 1 page. And that's why it's so tempting for people to use this, and they take their mind off of the process rather than why are they taking our money, and we have to keep our eye on the ball, which means that essentially all politicians, even no matter what they say, are in business to enhance the government, and the government needs the money, so they will inflate, they will run up debt, and they will increase taxes. So the simplification of this form offers very little relief for the average taxpayer. Essentially nothing. It probably, quite possibly, could do more harm than good.
Mm-hmm. Next, Hillary tried to appeal to Bernie's supporters in this speech, and it's not a big jump for her, but she was talking about free college for the middle class. Now, just to rewind back, the government, in its initial attempt to help college kids, poured over $1 trillion into student loans, which did nothing but drive up the price of college, and then loaded kids with debt. Well, Hillary wants to keep on helping these kids, and she says she wants to fight to make college tuition free for middle class and debt free for everyone. What do you think of this stuff?
It's a miracle. She's a genius. She's a genius. And I didn't believe in miracles, but here we have a miracle maker. But all politicians are miracle makers, essentially. But, my simple answer to this is when you get something for free, what you're getting is worth what you paid for it. So, yeah, free stuff seems like a good idea. But I think this educational thing, which you alluded to, is a good example of the people who are getting this free stuff and free education are victimized by it because they get a lousy education and they get introduced into a society that doesn't have good jobs, and they end up really paying for it. They end up the fact that they don't have jobs, they end up with inflation and all these other problems, and then they're out of school and they might have to be retrained again. So the cost doesn't bear down on the Wall Streeters who are able to get their stocks taken care of by the Federal Reserve and get their bailouts. So the average person has been really snookered on this. I mean, they're told you're going to get free stuff. and millions of people say, hey, that's a good idea, not realizing the sacrifice of their sense of self-respect and self-reliance is great, but the sacrifice on what they're looking for in reality, that is their liberties and a sound economy and a good job, they're just deceived completely on this. So this whole idea of a free education, it'll be worth exactly what they pay for it. And I just think that too many people are wishful thinking. Right now, I think this debt, $1.3 trillion of student debt, it will be removed. I mean, it's already started. As a matter of fact, I had a call on my cell phone because they think I'm so young and in college. It was a spontaneous call on my cell phone saying, we are here to help you get out of paying your student debt. Just, listen to this program. So who would be doing this? It has to be some government program. And they have my cell phone. They have my age mixed up because I graduated at least 5 years ago from college and I don't have any debt left to pay. So I wish they wouldn't bother me anymore about paying off my student debt.
Finally, Dr. Paul, despite all his faults, Donald Trump did say something recently that every libertarian should love, and that's that he wants to get rid of the estate tax, which is wonderful. Now, Hillary Clinton obviously does not like the idea. She says that alone would save the Trump family $4 billion when Trump dies. And that equals a $4 billion tax cut, and 99% of Americans would get nothing. So Hillary Clinton doesn't want Trump to decide what happens with his money. And this is the real revealing part. She says, just think of what we could do with that $4 billion. What do you think, Doc?
I'd tell the fact finders to go and check this out. We don't know exactly the amount of money Trump has. He embellishes on occasion. So some people argue that we don't know whether it's $2 billion or 10 or 12 billion or whatever. But then you have to just take the tax, which is a certain percentage. But for the estate tax to collect $4 billion, she's assuming, but it's almost like if his estate's worth $4 billion, she's going to get the whole thing. That's what she's implying because she doesn't know the exact numbers. I don't think she's made a calculation because she doesn't know what he's really worth. But the principle is still there. Should the estate tax exist, in a scheme of things, it really doesn't amount to a whole lot. But in the moral sense, it amounts to a whole lot. And I came across a lot of people when I was in Congress, people in my district, which was considered very, very modest district. And never did I have a rich person who was worth millions of dollars come up and say, the most important thing you can do, Ron, is to make sure we don't have to pay this estate tax. I've never had that. But I had a lot of people in the farming business and small businesses that might have a business worth $2-3 million in land that they couldn't sell if they had to. And I knew of examples where people had to sell the land to pay the estate tax. And that's terrible. It's a total violation of property rights, but they're violating the same principle of the income tax. The assumption is made that the government owns us. We don't own ourselves, and we don't own the fruits of our labor. The government will tell us how much we can keep from our income, and then when you do go, in spite of if you pay all your income taxes, and then you still build a business, and you have land paid for, and you have a good business, and you have some kids, and they're likely to inherit it. And then the government comes along because of this envious nature of so many politicians that said that they will take this away. It's just a shame that, I talk a lot about the 1%ers who make a lot of money off government and all the bailouts. But it's still a shame that people from the far left who make millions and millions of dollars, I understand the socialist candidate just bought a nearly $1 million house for his third house to set a good example for his socialist friends. But, this whole idea that they can take this money because they're envious of people, but they're not setting a very good standard. They're not Mother Teresa, and setting a certain moral standard. It's always political power, and they're never thinking for a minute that they're going to take money away. There will always be a loophole for their friends in Hollywood and in the media. They're not going to all of a sudden have to cough up. And besides, they might not even be intending this. This is just, politics as usual. Rich people are bad people. They don't distinguish between rich people who earned it versus rich people who stole it from the taxpayer and got it in the military-industrial complex. That's where the immorality comes. But it's the principle of self-ownership and property rights that I think is so important. And then you say, well, what are they going to do with this money? Won't it be very complicated? Not very often. There's sometimes fights over estates. But for the most part, I would think that a large percentage of people in this country have wills. And they have all sizes of estates. And sometimes it goes uneventfully. They just give their estate to their kids and allow them to divide it up or do with it what they want. It's a contract. You earn the money, it's yours. You save your money, you have an estate, you have a farm, you have a business. You don't want it to be broken up, and you write a will. This is what I want done with this. And this is abhorrent, to the far left and the interventionists, because they believe that it's theirs and that they have a right to decide what should be done. And they have two things that they use to do this. First, they use guns to do this. That is, if you don't obey, you could have the IRS knocking on your door. You go to prison. Everybody's terrified of that. And also, they are terrified of that. They just are scared to death of what will happen. And so they think, well, if this gets too hot and heavy, every once in a while you realize this when the heavy hand of government comes, that there's a conflict. And so they take the guns away from the people. But they want the guns, and they want the wealth, and they want the control. And they even go to the point that a lot of this is undermined even without the estate tax, because they can take property by takings. They just take your property by regulations and put so many regulations on that you have to break up property. You can't do this. You can't sell this property, because they want to be the owners, because they are the smartest people in the world, and they will not trust the people. But the people they pick to put in office to take care of us and rule over us, they happen to be smart people. Well, fortunately, right now, the people are waking up and realizing that the politicians and the bureaucrats and the professors who teach lousy economics aren't able to take care of us ourselves. And that is why we live in an age where we have a tremendous opportunity to offer them an alternative. Of course, that alternative is very clearly the free market and personal liberty. Chris, I want to thank you very much for being with us today for another Mythbusters program.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paul.
Good, and I want to thank all our viewers today for joining us, and please come back soon to the Ron Paul Liberty Report.